Hey, 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 welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to talk about TBIs or traumatic brain injuries. This is just a topic that is very near and personal to me. And I was going to bed last night and it was so crazy because I was laying there and all of a sudden it came to me that I needed to talk about this topic. So, for those who don't know, I have been living with a traumatic brain injury for over 10 years. I know for some that is just going to seem so crazy, right? Um, but it's true. Um, in 2009, I was assaulted, and during those two assaults, I received a brain injury. I actually went undiagnosed until 2017. Almost 10 years it took for me to be properly diagnosed because traumatic brain injuries are normally invisible unless you sustained like an injury that required them to operate or required doctors, to physically um, do some sort of life-saving brain surgery or things of that nature. Some brain injuries come from being shaken too much, like myself. Like football players, they receive brain injuries similar to mine. Um, but there's a lot of different brain injuries, and a lot of people don't understand. Majority of them affect us all pretty similar. I know that's going to sound so crazy to some of you, but the brain has different lobes and has different parts of it that some affect the memory, some affect motor skills, small and large, some affect speech. Um, you will also have um, different parts of the body are impacted. And so brain signals can misfire and give the wrong signal to your body. And so there's a lot of different injuries that the brain can get. What I've noticed, it doesn't matter which one you're going through, or if you know someone who's going through it. I don't want to talk about necessarily the actual injury itself today. What I want to talk about is how you should support someone with a TBI or a brain or a traumatic brain injury. I want to talk about how you should support someone and what tools I can equip you with today are going to better serve you in serving them later in if you ever experience this, maybe you know somebody now who's going through this. Why I wanted to bring up this topic is because my son-in-law is actually going through it. My daughter has, for the last 6 weeks, her partner has been in the hospital, and he had a head injury from an ATV quad accident. And for the last 6 weeks, my heart has just been wrenching because I have been watching this 30 plus young man, 32-year-old young man, be treated like a child. I've watched his rights completely be yanked by certain individuals. I have witnessed and heard him say multiple times expressing his needs and then multiple times being ignored or told no. Um, I have just witnessed and heard things from his own family and from hospital staff that are appalling. And so I wanted to make this in hopes to raise awareness because I feel like education is key here. I could scream and yell at those people all day long and cuss them out and call them all kinds of horrible names and tell them what awful people they are for treating him that way. But I think that my voice would be better heard if I'm sharing some knowledge. That's good coffee. Okay. So, first and foremost, never berate or belittle somebody else. When we are berating people and making them feel like they have no voice and they can't be heard, and we're nitpicking and we're arguing with them, you're bringing yourself to a really low level. You heard me. You yourself are dropping yourself down to such a low level that you're behaving childlike in not a good way. You're acting childish and everybody around you sees it. Who wants to argue with somebody who's injured and in the hospital? Anybody who does that has to be out of their right mind, in my opinion. When somebody is injured or sick or in a hospital bed, they're the patient, which means that they need to be cared for and loved. And whether they have a brain injury or not, they need to be treated with dignity and respect. And part of that dignity and respect is allowing them to be heard. With a traumatic brain injury, people are confused, especially in the beginning. We're really confused. We forget little short term things, but it doesn't make us incompetent. Things get mixed up, things get scattered in our head, and we just need help putting those pieces together every now and then. I have been living with my brain injury for over 10 years. For 14 years. And in those 14 years, in the beginning, it didn't seem so bad because I was drinking my problems away and I was numbing it. So I didn't really notice. It wasn't until after I had my son and my spinal cord blew out, my L4-5 disc blew, and the midwife put me through just a few minutes shy of a 12-hour delivery. It wasn't until then that my body started going haywire. That was almost like a trigger for me to trigger that TBI to really go crazy. I didn't realize there was memory issues. Other people noticed it first. And I'm just being transparent. And it caused relationship problems. And it caused for me to be misunderstood, stood and misheard. And it was frustrating. And I couldn't figure out why. And so every person who's going through a TBI is going to have frustration. In some way, shape, or another, we're going to have frustration. We're going to have setbacks. We're going to have minor days where we're going to have really good days, and then we're going to have some not so good days. Today, 14 years later, I have less not so good days, but I've had to learn how to cope with this over the years so that I could have less good days. Stress is the number one inducer of 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 the triggers of triggering that TBI to show its ugly little face. Stress is huge. I tell people stress will kill me. And why I say that is because it really will. I'm just being transparent. Stress always sets me into um, vertigo and tinnitus, which, if you don't know what that is, it's severe dizziness that you can't control and ringing of your ears that you can't control. It always sets me into making me feel like I'm good, and it makes you want to vomit. It makes you want to. You're really sick. You can't really control it. You're bedridden. Um, Stress will do those things to me, and so I keep stress at bay. I do not let people or things stress me out. If they do, I eliminate them. And it's just that simple. I eliminate them. I've made decisions in my life that are healthier for me. And if it bothers people, oh well. I want to live a long, happy, healthy life. And I have to do things that I need to do for myself health wise and my traumatic brain injury and my family. And so the biggest contributing factor I have learned with a traumatic brain injury is stress. Um, I can do a little caffeine. I gotta watch my caffeine intake as well, but it doesn't bother me as much as stress does. The other thing is a lot of people underplay a brain injury because it's so invisible. You look normal. And even if you have a scar on your head and your hair is covered, you still look normal. It's invisible. And people just don't take you authentically serious once you tell them that you have a traumatic brain injury. All of a sudden they seem as though you're incompetent. And that is so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. Now, granted, I was a teacher and a caregiver for over 20 years. And I loved my careers. I loved my professions. I love what I did. Um, it's not my traumatic brain injury that stops me from doing those, just so you know. It's my physical injuries that I sustained during that attack. And so I didn't just get the traumatic brain injury, I also had a bunch of spinal cord damage. And so like that is what limits me from going back to those careers. It's not that I can't do them. I said I choose not to. Was I able to go back to work with a traumatic brain injury? Yes. Yes. I've been fortunate to find myself in a place in my life where I know how to manage it. I know how to manage my health. Um, and the biggest advice that I can give anybody, especially if you're supporting somebody, is allow them to learn what they can and can't do. It's a relearning process on a lot of things. Some people have to learn how to feed themselves again. Some people have to learn how to talk better or more, clearer. Some people are having short term or some people have long term memory. Everybody's a little different. Um, you've seen some people where they lose their memory after a few minutes. Like everybody's a little different. For me, um, my biggest thing is I was just telling my son Logan something yesterday, and it was so funny. I look at it now, I laugh, but before I get really frustrated. I was just telling him something the other day, yesterday, and I was trying to like help him, not correct him, but help him. He's 20, you know. And as I'm telling him something, I'm mixing up my words, and my kids knew what I meant, all three of them. They're 23, 20, and 11. They've been with me long enough to know how this works. And they were cracking up. I'm not gonna lie. They were laughing so hard at me because I was just trying to help. And I was doing a really horrible job at it. I took 4 words and those 4 words, I would flip and flop them, if that makes sense. And meaning to say one word would say the other one of the other words. And then as the conversation would go, I would do it again and again. Oh, it was just it used to be so frustrating. And sometimes it still is, I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean. And they were like, yes, we know what you mean. But they thought it was they have to laugh too. What we have learned as a family is if we're not laughing a little bit about this and the little mistakes that my brain makes and the little things my body does, and then we're not going to get through it in harmony and with a higher vibration. I used to get so mad at people, especially in my family, for making, for like laughing about it and for joking about it. And it used to like, I wouldn't say offend me, but I would say it used to bother me. And soon enough, I realized that laughter is the joy. it's the medicine that we need through hard times. And if I'm getting upset that we're trying to make it through it together and we're trying to use a coping tool such as laughter, I'm just being ridiculous too, because we have to be able to find something that's gonna embrace what we live with. And I think that was the hardest thing for me because I didn't want this. Who wants a traumatic brain injury? Nobody. I can tell you there's not a soul alive that wants to live with a TBI. We didn't choose this. And I think that's what was the hardest for me because I remember having to grieve the life I had, the athlete I was, and I could no longer do the things I loved and I was passionate about. And I had to grieve those things. I want to be a teacher since second grade, and I had to grieve that loss. And so, as somebody who now today gets to support other people who are going through or have gone through similar situations as myself, I am just so grateful that I made the decision to keep going. I'm grateful that I made the decision to educate people about it today. There are so many different things that you can do supportive wise to help somebody. You know, you can help them get around, see if they want to get outside and get some fresh air and go on a walk together. It doesn't have to be anything that costs anything. Sit with them and just let them talk to you. Don't talk to them, let them talk to you. The other thing is sometimes people need support with like a grocery run or, maybe make them a meal. Sometimes we're not feeling the greatest to get up and make a meal or to cook, and we're just kind of blah. And so there's days where my family and I will have fend for ourselves night. They're all old enough that they can all figure out what they want to have for dinner. And so I stopped having mom guilt, wife guilt about those things. I have to listen to my body. And whether anybody likes it or not, you have to put that first and foremost in your life. Living with a traumatic brain injury, it's not something that somebody who has one can just put on the back burner. Any invisible illness, just because you can't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so the biggest thing you can do to support people is allow them to have a voice and allow them to be heard. Respect their needs and their wishes. And I think that that's where I struggled with the most with this situation with my son-in-law is watching his wishes be disrespected. He was being demeanored, and I'm not one to watch somebody be treated as less than, especially knowing what he's going through firsthand. And so I've had to do a lot of self work these last 6 weeks. I've had to do a lot of patience and understanding on my part because it can be frustrating to watch from the outside, especially when it's not my place to say something. And that's why I thought making this podcast would be just a blessing. And I just want to explain to you guys that just because someone has a traumatic brain injury doesn't mean they can't go back to their day to day. It doesn't mean they can't go back to their career. It doesn't mean they can't rehabilitate. Everybody has the same opportunity. And I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in Jesus as being a healer. And I have watched him work miracles in my life. I found a career that I love. I found a path that I love in my life. I did not expect to be the woman I am today. I did not expect to be as healed as I am today. I received that brain injury at 30 years old, just before my 30th birthday, actually. And I am a walking miracle here today to tell you it's possible. Here to tell you, you have the script and you have the pen to rewrite your story. Here to tell you that if somebody is not willing to love you unconditionally and support you in the way that you feel like you need it, politely ask them to bow out and exit your life. There's nothing wrong with you telling somebody that your season with them is coming to a pause or an end. You can take breaks from family. I know we don't get to choose our family, and I know we don't get to decide whether or not they stay in our lives, but I will tell you, I don't have relationships with toxic family members. I don't have toxic friends in my life anymore. I eliminated them. And if that bothers them, that's on them. That's their perspective. They can see, oh man, Crystal took, remove me. How dare she? All they want. I needed healthy boundaries because my life was being impacted and my health was being severely impacted. When your anxiety starts to creep in after you worked years to get rid of it, after you suffered with it for 37 years, after you started having a panic attack for every single one of those years you've suffered, if not more each day, I won't go back to that. I refuse to revert back to where I've been because I'm going somewhere different. I got a future ahead of me that requires me to not have to focus on those things and those people. And supporting someone who's going through this, it doesn't mean you get to tell them what to do. It doesn't mean you get to judge them. It doesn't mean that you get to say, you're making a huge mistake and blah, 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 blah. And you get to ridicule them. That's not how you support someone that you're supposed to love and care about, especially somebody who's going through a traumatic brain injury, who is struggling with their day to day, trying to just put the pieces back together. To lead them down a false rabbit hole for your own benefit, you should be ashamed of yourself if you're doing that to somebody. To allow them to get frustrated knowing that you're the party who frustrated them. And if you don't realize that your words have power and that they impact someone else's day to day, you need to start waking up and paying attention, because our words have power and the things that we say to other people matter, and they do hear it and they do listen. I don't care if somebody's injured or not, they're going to know. And they're going to take it as the way they perceive it. And I'm going to tell you, somebody with a traumatic brain injury, if you give them something negative to focus on, it's going to grow into not just a mole, but a mountain. Because it's so much easier when you have a TBI. Hear me out. When you have a TBI, it's so much easier to latch onto the negative because you're already feeling like crap for having it. You're already feeling less than for having it, for going through the experience. You're already feeling like a burden. You're already feeling like you're just going to take up someone else. You're like, you don't want to have people that you have to rely on. You are so independent, and your independence feels like it's just been taken from you. And it's sickening the way people will treat other people, hospital staff, family, friends. Their ignorance is so incredibly insane to me to this day. The training that's not being done for traumatic brain injury patients is insane to me. I've lived with this for 14 years, and people are still being treated the same way, if not worse, since the day I got mine. Just since my diagnosis in October of 2017, I still see the same garbage. And it is so unfortunate. And I pray that the medical society, I pray that they start waking up I pray they start treating people with brain injuries with some dignity, some respect, with more love, more compassion, more empathy. Most importantly, stop trying to take their rights away. Stop trying to treat them like they're incompetent and they're a burden to society, because we're not. None of us are. We're human, damn it. And we deserve the same respect as anybody else. And it's incredible how many people don't give that to people with a brain injury. If you've ever told another human being or another being that they are a burden, you should be ashamed of yourself. Nobody's a burden. God placed every single one of us here for a purpose. And we have a purpose. And you may not see your purpose. And so you're being negative and toxic. And you're telling people that they're a burden, when in fact you're the one that's being a burden by opening your mouth like that. Society doesn't need people like that. What is your purpose? Your purpose should not be to downgrade and degrade and to treat people like trash, thrown on the curb, thrown in the dumpster. You should be ashamed of yourself. And I know someone's listening to this today, and you may have done that. Ask God for forgiveness. Ask your higher power for forgiveness and start taking the steps to treat people better. Get some humility in your life. You need humbled. You should be grateful that you aren't the one sitting in that hospital bed, that you aren't the one struggling with that injury, that illness. You should be more empathetic to people who are. But I'm going to tell you, most people, they don't get it till they get it. You know what that means? It has to happen to them before they develop that empathy. I lived that life. I was an athlete my whole freaking life. I had a whole life ahead of me. And the choices I made led me to where I am today. I know that I played a role in where I'm at today in my life. But it took a while for me to get here to realize that. And maybe that's you. If you want to support somebody, sometimes supporting them requires you to shut your mouth. Keep your thoughts that are toxic and negative to yourself. If you remember the old saying when we were kids, if you can't say nothing nice, then don't say nothing at all. That should apply to everybody in society today. There's no need to spew hatred when you can spew love. Somebody with a TBI is going to be quick to fight with you. They're going to be quick to lash back at you. They're going to be quick to defend themselves. They're struggling with their brain cognitive. They're struggling with sometimes it's motor skills. Sometimes it's the thought process. Sometimes it's the physical movements. There's days I choke on air, not intending to choke on air. And if somebody berated me every single time that happened, I don't know how I would feel. I sure wouldn't be the person I am today. I'll tell you that much. I've had family and friends say, "You're just making it up. It's not real. You just want attention. You just want attention." It used to bother me. I don't have those people in my life anymore. I cut them out. Cut them out. Snip, snip. They handed me the scissors. And I'm not afraid to use the scissors anymore. And that's what you have to get the courage to have for your own well-being. Whether anybody likes it or not, doesn't matter whether they're family or friends. If they're going to hinder your healing, remove them, even if it's temporary. They're going to hinder your healing, remove them. And I will promise you, it'll be a little difficult at first. Because if you are somebody like me, You don't like confrontation, and you want to love people, and you want people to love you back, right? You just want to be loved. I want you to understand that first and foremost, the love you have for yourself is priority number one. And it's really hard to find that when you have people in your ear who are toxic and saying things that aren't true. But deep down, you have felt that you wondered if those things were, right? We already devalue ourselves because we can't do some of the things that we once did, or we're struggling to heal so we can get back to those things we love, right? We don't need somebody else in our ear hindering that progress. It's taken me 14 years to get where I am today with a traumatic brain injury. But I will tell you, I could have gotten here a lot sooner had I removed those people sooner. And I'm not downplaying it. I see where I could have improved my life. And so I'm here to tell you today, your health and your family's health is priority number one. And if somebody else thinks of you as being a problem or a burden or faking it or whatever, you have the tools to tell them to kick rocks. Don't ever doubt that. You have what it takes to live this life to the best of your ability. And you should be damn proud, because guess what? Your purpose is so incredibly high because you're here, and you're living proof of miracles. You are one of God's miracles, and you are living proof of the miracles that He creates in this lifetime and in this universe and in this world. Your purpose is so high for Him, for the glory of Him, for the healing of humankind. You may not even realize it yet, how powerful you are. But you have so much to offer the world just by being you and going through the experiences that you went through and that you're going through. So start living in your truth. Start living in the truth that you deserve greatness too, that you will heal, that you will be whole, that you will be happy, that you'll have so much joy and gratitude in your day to day, and so much love that's bursting out of your heart for yourself and others, that those people that talk trash and talk down to you, they can't even touch your energy level. They can't even touch what it is that you have to offer the planet. They can't even compare. Because I promise you, God gives these battles to people just like you and me, because He knows that we're going to do something really freaking awesome with them. We're going to shine. Other people are going to see the light. They're going to see the miracles through us. And so never doubt what He's been giving you. Never doubt that what you're facing right now, whatever invisible illness it is you're facing right now, it's not your job to complain about them. And it may be easy to complain, I promise, I understand. But it's your job to just heal through them. It's your job to show people how you can be such a beautiful healer through them. I'm not saying sit there and suffer silently. I'm saying find the beauty in what you can and the pain that you can. Find the joy in your day to day. Look past the pain and the suffering to find the beauty. Pick it out. Dig deep. Maybe it's your family that's there, that's loving you. Maybe it's a game you're playing with one of your kids, a show you're watching with somebody, something that somebody made you laugh. Maybe it's the fresh air, your animals. Find something. Maybe it's a song on the radio or music. Whatever it is, you've got to find the beauty in each day. Because if you can't find the love and the beauty and the gratitude in each day is going to feel like the same day, and it's going to get monotonous. And then those things that those crappy people said to you, or those crappy things you thought of yourself, are going to creep in, and they're going to bring you down and make it harder to heal. And so do your best when you need to rest. I'm going to tell you the biggest healing that I did for my body was rest, 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 rest. And I hated resting. I was a workaholic, I was a go getter. But rest has been the most powerful tool. If I need a nap, I need a nap. If I need to rest, I need to rest, right? It's just, it's okay. It's okay. You're allowed to. All right, y'all. I hope this helps somebody. Remember, go out and be a loving soul to other people. Don't devalue them just because they're struggling. You too have been given a powerful purpose, and that is to be the light. I love you all. I hope this helps somebody.